I'm Jerry Agar, broadcaster. He's Tanner Agar, restaurateur, bartender, and chef, and almost, what's the wine expert called?
Sommelier.
Yeah, you're getting there. You've passed your
Yeah.
first level. We'll see how that goes. But this will be a fun episode because we're going to talk about food that kills you. So, and a victory in that area. When a friend of mine who's a turkey expert joins us in a little bit, we're going to talk about taking salmonella out of the turkey world, which was a really good move, and he was a part of it. So that's coming up. But let's start with your dangerous amuse booze here.
Our Amuse Booze today is not dangerous, despite what the City of Dallas Health Department wants you to believe.
We'll hear that story in a minute, but tell us what you're talking about here.
My battle with the health department will be an entire segment here at the end of the show. But what we're going to have is tepache. So tepache, if you're looking at it here on the video, you can see it's like this sort of golden color. Doesn't look too different from like a beer or a cider, something like that. Tepache is a traditional Mexican beverage. What you do is you take the peels, the rinds, that prickly part of the pineapple. You take that off. You throw in piloncillo, which is like a brown sugar, really popular in Mexico. And you basically put that in a container, and you're going to let that ferment. So the idea is between the brown sugar, between the pineapple, you're going to develop these kinds of flavors, and it's going to spontaneously ferment, just the way that original wine was done, beer was done, the same way anything that's fermented is done. This is a process that has been done for thousands of years. People have been doing this, and it's only recently the city of Dallas has decided it's unsafe.
Okay, this is obviously an issue to you, but are you making this drink yourself at home?
Yes, you can make this yourself at home. It's incredibly easy. If you have a knife and some cheesecloth and a bucket, you can make tepache. Look it up online. It's super delicious. It's really low ABV, a little bit less than beer, somewhere between kombucha and beer, but it's fresh, it's tropical. You can make it at home. It's so great. We make it at Apothecary, and then we use it in one of our cocktails. And that wild fermentation, the wild microbes and everything, that's what gives it its great flavor. That's why it's so good. And if you do it in a controlled, safe environment, like a professional Michelin level kitchen, it's very safe and it's very good. Unlike some of the stuff we're going to get into here, this segment called Food That Kills You is going to be all about some of the worst examples of things people thought were a good idea and then obviously didn't work out. And not surprisingly, milk was an especially affected product from this.
Okay, I have one quick question, though, before you get into the milk and all of this stuff that kills you. What if I don't have that Mexican brown sugar? Can I just use brown sugar?
You could use brown sugar, yeah. Okay. But piloncillo, it generally comes in like a cone shape. It's the only sugar product I know. It's like we have loose sugar, cube sugar, and cone sugar. And I'm not sure how that happened, but you can generally find them in a Mexican market, but you should make it. It's super easy.
Okay, now some of this stuff we're going to talk about, food that kills us, it used to kill people.
Well, it used to kill people, right. Like the first one that we've got here on the list, swill milk.
Yeah.
So they have distillery mash. So when you ferment something, right, you're crushing the corn, you've got the sugar, you're fermenting that off. So when you make tepache, for example, you get the liquid, that's what you drink, you throw the rest away. But some enterprising individuals in the 1850s in New York said, we're throwing this stuff away, cows will eat it. So they gave them this like rotting distillery mash, like corn, things like that was going bad. It made the cows get diseased and ulcerated, but they didn't know this yet. And they just thought, well, we'll just milk the cows anyway. So the milk comes out. And from the reports that I was reading, it's gray/blue. And it wasn't very... Tip. Right. Well, that's the thing is like, if you poured your milk through a gym sock, imagine what color it would be. Like, would you drink that? Would you think to yourself, like, I should drink this? But anyway, they're not deterred by the gray nor the blue. No, these people are profit-driven individuals, and they think it's too thin. So what do they thicken it with? Chalk.
Wow.
Right, because it's white and it's a thickener that doesn't taste bad. I'm not sure. I don't have an 1850s tuned palate. But so they make this stuff, swill milk. They start giving it, and this is sort of a sad fact, but 8,000 babies were dying a year in New York City because of swill milk before it got pulled off the shelves.
Well, it was probably sold cheaply.
I'm sure that's what it was. Yeah. It was a very cheap, cost-effective milk that got out there. Milk there's another one with milk that we've got here. Milk also has the real big problem of that it goes bad all the time.
Right.
right? You need a ton of space for cows. You grew up on a farm.
Yep.
Cows take a lot of space, right? You need a lot of space. You don't have refrigeration. You got to get it from the farm to these dense neighborhoods. If you don't have a refrigerated truck to do that, how can you do it? So you'll never believe what some people in the late 1800s, we've recovered from swill milk. We've grown up, we're mature, we're smart now. We have moved on to, drum roll, embalmed milk.
Embalmed milk. What could go wrong?
I know. So literally, they didn't brand it as embalmed milk, but it was literally formaldehyde treated milk. And I found some old ads for a brand called Iceline and Freezine. Freezine, right? We've frozen it, right? We've like somehow frozen the milk so it's safe, so it stays fresh. And like literally this ad was like it prevents spoilage, which technically is true.
Yeah.
Formaldehyde, there's a reason you embalm with formaldehyde. It stops bacterial growth. It apparently stops you from noticing it tastes bad. The sour note. Somehow the thing that sours in milk, so it's bad. It cancels that out so that you don't get to notice that it's spoiled. And they, of course, a ton of people started getting sick because they're drinking formaldehyde.
Right.
And this group, it was called the Poison Squad. It was this group at that time that got really famous. And it wasn't just milk. They were finding all kinds of products and saying, this is not good. This is not safe. This is how you ended up getting things like the Pure Food and Drug Act. This is, I'm sure, sort of the impetus of what became the various government agencies that protect food to this day.
All right. We're doing an episode here called Food That Kills. This stuff is not necessarily on the market today. We're talking about history. That one that you just said, Freezine, we do from time to time on these episodes, we do fake ads where we say this is our sponsor, and we try to make them sound stupid enough so that it is fake. That's the kind of thing we would have made up. All right.
I wish we had made it up. I wish I was clever enough to think of embalmed milk, but no, I had to use Encyclopedia Britannica for that.
Yeah, all right. So in the 1920s, though, the original tonic water, the OG energy drink, was sold.
Yeah, the first energy drink. They branded it as energy tonic. But right, it was an energy drink. So before Red Bull, before Rockstar. So honestly, those guys were just copying something that was already 80 years old by the time it came out. But the brand was, I think it's pronounced Radithor. And I think the idea was they were trying to connect it to like Thor, like it's an energy drink. It gives you like lightning jolt of energy. You'll never believe what they're using. They're using radium.
Oh.
Literally radioactive material infused into your beverage. Quite possibly the most dangerous beverage I've ever heard of. And you know what? I know I'm going to complain about them a lot. But if the Dallas City Health Inspector wanted to ban this, I would let that go.
You'd let that go. Okay, but it's amazing how, we look at something now and go, are you out of your mind? But we're going almost 200 years back here. In England in the mid-1800s, they had a candy called what?
No, so they didn't call it arsenic candy. They had an epidemic of arsenic candy.
Okay.
So arsenic candy, you get this... apparently, so it's the 1800s, right? Sugar's very expensive. So sugar was exceptionally expensive in Europe. It was pretty cheap in the Americas because that's where the sugarcane plantations were. One of the things that led to kind of the collapse of the sugar economy in the Americas was once people figured out how to turn beets into sugar. The sugar beet became popular, and that started providing sugar to Europe, brought down the price, and spread it everywhere. But before this happened, people used to cut their candy. They would cut their sugar with fillers so that the candy could be literally larger candy, but be cost effective. So gypsum was a really popular one that people would use.
Isn't that what we put in the walls?
I think so. I'm not a contractor, I'm a confectioner.
Okay.
But so you get the gypsum. They're cutting it with the gypsum. Apparently, this huge manufacturer orders gypsum. There's no safety guards in place, so they get shipped arsenic instead. So the shipper doesn't think maybe this is wrong. This guy normally buys candy supplies, not poison. They ship him arsenic. Candy supplier doesn't test it. And, arsenic, everyone's heard of it, but it's like, even at the time, it was known for like rat poison. It was an industrial chemical. Like people knew this was dangerous stuff, but no one tested it. And 20 people died in this outbreak of arsenic candy because they were just popping arsenic pills.
Okay, well, and many, many more became sick, but that was several hundred years ago. You know, I talk a lot on my radio show about too much government here or there, but I have to say, one of the places we need somebody, and maybe it is a government job, is food inspection and food safety. And despite your obvious issue with the inspector who made you throw out what you thought was a safe drink because he doesn't like fermenting, that's a necessary part of our food program in North America.
It is a necessary thing. I'm glad facilities have inspections. I'm glad restaurants have inspections. I wish that sometimes they were more knowledgeable, but we will get into that into a later segment. The last story I wanted to mention here, because it's going to tie so perfectly with our guest coming up in the next segment, is in 2008. You know, it's sort of funny, morbid, dark, funny to talk about these like 1850 stories. But in 2008, there's this company called Peanut Corporation of America. And they make peanut paste, they make peanut butter. Their peanut butter ends up getting sold to national brands, schools, nursing homes, all kinds of stuff like that. They get this huge salmonella outbreak in their facility, and this is 2008. You know, this is when we're supposed to be ahead of all of that. They ended up 700 people get sick, 9 people die, and they start having these recalls, which is terrible. It's really sad, except then the investigation into how this happened reveals emails where the company's emailing about what to do about their salmonella contaminated peanut butter, with one email saying, quote, turn them loose. So they falsify the documents. They ship the contaminated peanut butter. The CEO ends up in federal prison over this because it wasn't an accident. This was not ignorance. They knew it and they shipped it. Even though, I mean, like, anybody listening to the show knows salmonella is dangerous, and they shipped it anyway. And yeah, that guy ended up going to prison for his cover-up.
What did you do? I robbed the bank. What did you do? Sold salmonella peanut butter. What?
Yeah, that's messed up, man.
That's
You're hurting
messed
kids. I just robbed a bank. The government will bail them out.
Yeah, you hurt kids. Scott Rowland is joining, and Scott has spent a lifetime of working in the turkey business. And we're starting off here, Scott. I just want to start with a little statistic you gave me the other day. I said, well, how many turkeys does your company sell anyway? And you brought up your plant in one of the Dakotas.
Yeah, South Dakota.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How many?
Yeah. Well, we produce out of there about 400,000 or 500,000 a week. That come out of a day old birds that start, you know, they're going to hatch and off they go to the farms. That's commercial. Yeah.
Wow, because my grandfather did turkeys every year, and he raised 1,200 turkeys every year, which I thought was a stunning number of turkeys, and I was afraid of those birds when I was a kid.
You should see the size of them now, Jerry. You'd be more afraid of them. They're big,
really?
Big toms. Yeah, they're big birds.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the U.S., there's about 200 million turkeys a year put down, like this, you know, that are started a day old for human consumption. So yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to say when you started talking about it, 2 million turkeys a year that people eat. No, it's 2 million a day.
No, so yeah, it'd be 2 million a day. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Right. Not from just our company, but yeah.
All right.
Well, that's amazing. And I appreciate you being here, Scott. One of the questions, you know, we're talking about food safety today, sort of things that do it. In the last segment, we just talked about salmonella a little bit. And one of the things that's really cool is back in the 90s, 10 to 15% of turkeys would have salmonella. And that was just kind of considered as best as it's going to get. We're all doing our best. And my understanding is it's you and your team that really paved the way to get that number to 0.
Yeah. So,
please tell us about that.
Extrapolate a little bit on that.
How you solve such an impossible problem so efficiently.
Right. So the entry in the business that I'm in is in genetics. So if we think about breeding or animal, the food chain, we're at the very tip of the top. So we're what we're called as a primary breeder. So we're selling breeding stock that goes down to a company like Jennie-O or Butterball or those type of companies that are then taking it and putting it into commercial birds. So it would be a mistake, Tanner, for me to say that the industry is at 0 salmonella. It still has salmonella, but at the very tip of the top, the primary breeders, when we sell into the industry, we're selling product that has 0 salmonella. So we can say at the beginning of the chain, where before at the very top the chain had salmonella as well. Now the very beginning of the chain has a chance to be negative because they're starting with breeding stock that's 0 salmonella. and we
How'd
did
you do
achieve
that?
that. Yeah, it was a painstaking work, let me tell you. For 5 years, we worked on that, and it was literally we took, uh, because we're at the very top of the chain, the pedigree birds, you can't destroy those birds because that's the pedigree chain. So we literally treated the birds, and walked them on disinfectant to new barns because salmonella will move around with their feet or feces or in their feathers. We cleaned the birds, and we have our own laboratories that we're testing regularly, looking for salmonella, environmental salmonella, and everything from monitoring feed, monitoring all our facilities, the barns, are shower in, shower out. So our employees shower into the facility, then they walk out to the barn and shower in again and shower out again, trying to keep the inside as clean as they can to mitigate any chance that we have salmonella. So that when we sell breeding stock to the multipliers, to the multiply industry, that breeding stock has zero salmonella. It was 5 years for us to eradicate it. And we still watch day to day. And if a flock happens to get a salmonella, we destroy the flock. We take it out because we don't want to multiply that into the system. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you're selling these birds, you said you sell them at a day old. Is that right?
That's correct. And we sell them. So there's two aspects to our business, Tanner. Is the primary breeding aspect, which we sell around the world. So we're selling breeding stock, a male and a female that that match up and then produce the type of eggs that you would be hatched. That would then be the turkey that you would eat at Christmas or you would find at your local store. So we're in that business, and we're also further down in the chain doing the multiplication ourselves. So we have two types of businesses. So we sell, in the multiplication business, we produce 500,000 birds a week as part of that chain. But in the very top part, we would sell much less of the breeding stock because that's the beginning of the multiplication. Does that make some sense? Like, do you understand
Yeah,
the?
absolutely. And
Yeah,
these are the top end birds. These are the ones where you got the different breeds that you can raise, and
correct.
they'll have different colors, slightly different flavors,
Yeah, yeah,
slightly
yeah.
different like that. This is obviously a food show. So
Right.
what breed should I be looking for? I mean, we're far away from Thanksgiving, Christmas right now, but what are the best tasting? I know you're trying to save people from safety, but we're trying to save them from bad flavor. So what are the best tasting types of turkeys?
Well, I would say that the turkeys that you would be able to buy in North America, are like the type that would typically be on the shelf, would be very domesticated, more of a milder brand turkey. And so in Europe, our European operations, we have different birds they're a little more selective, the more meatier bird, maybe less. There's an inverse relationship to the size of a bird and its ability to produce eggs. So a big bird produces less eggs, and so there's some give if you want to have different birds that have meatier or maybe more flavorful meat, if that's the case, and how they grow those birds. In North America, made a big comeback is the bronze bird. So the turkey that you would see in the store typically in the barn has all white feathers. Okay.
Okay.
But in the original birds back where if you see turkeys in the wild, if you're driving around in Texas, you'll see turkeys in the wild. They're bronze. They're a brown feather, dark
Yeah,
brown
I mean,
feather.
wild turkey, which
Right.
I'm more familiar with it on the front of a whiskey bottle than I am out in the yard.
Yeah.
But so the
So
bronze turkey's back.
yeah, so it's back because people look at that as slow cooking, going back to the old breed. And I've tested it. I've tasted it. We have it. There is some difference in taste. There's a bit of difference in texture in the meat. The interesting story about bronze, why that was kind of taken out of the cycle, why we went to a white bird, was the bronze turkey, the feathering used to leave a stain in the skin. So when when we take a bird and we take the feathers off it, defeather it, and eviscerate it, and it's clean, they would see these black marks. And so the white feathers don't leave those marks. And so that was and when we had opaque bags and people wanted to not see this coloring. And it's funny how it's come back full cycle. How now that's, it seemed because when we first went back into getting bronze birds, funny story, was we bought these bronze birds. another breed. It was from California. We brought them back to Canada and we started to breed them. And so we were excited when the first birds, they were all fully brown and they were a novelty to us. And so we took them to the slaughterhouse. They got slaughtered and they came back and we looked at them, and our general manager and I looked at this and we said, "Where's the brown marks on the skin?" And there was no brown marks in the skin. And so I don't know what we think was, because the bird had been bred to grow fast, the ink wasn't there long enough to leave a mark. Turkeys in the old day, bronze turkey, it might take 30 weeks or 35 weeks to get the size they wanted. Well, that can be done now in 19. And so we're thinking that's maybe what happened, but we bought this breed looking for this bronze mark, and it wasn't there because it wasn't on the skin.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Scott, because I've been through this conversation with you and some other friends, and that's you recommend don't bother taking 3-4 days before Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it might be, thawing the turkey. You put a frozen turkey in the oven.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges, and I think that Tanner and yourself will both know this, when you think of turkey, I do. I was a kid growing up. Turkey was a specialty item that we had at Thanksgiving, Christmas, sometimes Easter, but that was basically most, when we had it. And part of that's because I remember it was our big conflagration. My mother, the turkey came out of the oven or out of the freezer and it was thawed, because my dad didn't buy a fresh turkey. We had this frozen turkey. It was in the sink for like a day and a half, thawing out and cleaning it and the whole rigmarole. And what we have now is we have the ability to buy a turkey that is pre-stuffed and it's frozen. And so even a guy like you and I, Jerry, can take the bag off it. It's frozen. We stick it in the pan. We put the top on it and we put it in the oven, and it comes out awesome. And it's so easy. It's clean. There's nothing in the sink. In fact, they don't want you to thaw it. The big signs say, "Do not thaw it," because it's pre-stuffed. And I think, our mutual friend there, he would agree that we're heroes because we do that now. Him and I cook the family turkey, which is basically take the bag off it, stick it in a pan, and stick it in the oven.
And take the credit.
And take the credit. I'm not sure there's a difference in flavor or taste, but it's a lot easier. Yeah. So
Scott Rowland is our turkey expert, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for spending time with us.
Yeah, no problem. Turkey today, Tanner, and Jerry, that turkey in the United States is probably 70% cut up. Only 30% of it is a whole bird, because the market is so limited as far as and that market is declining as cultures come into the United States or into Western civilization, and they're not acclimatized to using that as a cuisine item, a whole bird turkey. But the number one deli meat in North America is turkey. Ham is a close second, but turkey meat. So most of the turkey that is used in the United States is in schnitzel, sausage, and particularly deli meat. Yeah.
Schnitzel?
Yeah, turkey schnitzel. If you've never had turkey schnitzel, it's amazing. In Germany, if you go to Germany, I find when I'm in Europe, turkey is more center plate. You'll see it on the menu, where in North America, we don't see it very often. Very rarely, as far as schnitzel. I think probably my favorite is scallopini. Turkey scallopini is absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite things. It's just beautiful.
We're doing an episode of Flavor Files called Food That Kills. And a little earlier, I said, Tanner, that I think the one place where we need government and government agencies is the inspection of food safety all across the board, from the production to restaurants and grocery stores and all of those places, anybody that deals with food. But that doesn't mean that people in your restaurant and bar business are always happy with the health inspector.
In fact, we're frequently not. As I might point out, I'm on my second glass of tepache, and I still haven't died. So this would determine I do know how to make it cost effectively and safely.
Talk fast. I need you to get through the episode before you die.
The last episode of Flavor Files, everybody. You're hearing me. These will be my final words. Grace was hoping it would be me saying, "I love you, honey," but it's going to turn out to be me on Flavor Files. So, all right. So the health inspection. The health inspection, every single restaurant, if you know someone in the restaurant business, buy them a beer and have them tell you a funny health inspector story. We all have them. They're absolutely everywhere. One of the huge problems, one of the big issues we always have is that a lot of the things that we do, the health department doesn't necessarily train anybody on what they are, how they work, or how to make sure that they're happening effectively. They also, so because they don't have some of that training, you then get these like very arbitrary enforcements. Different inspectors have different things they care about. I had an inspector who the only thing he cared about was the Chicago Cubs. So as long as your restaurant didn't look dirty and you just chatted up about the Cubs, he didn't inspect you. He would find like some random thing, give you a 93 and then leave. He like never actually inspected our restaurant.
That's a better record than the Cubs.
I know, but we were talking about things with them. They're so frustrating because sometimes, look, it's one thing if you have a restaurant that's dirty, if you've got roaches, if you've got rodents, if you've got problems. I'm not saying we don't need these, but I'm saying here's an argument that I had one time with a health inspector. I had an air conditioning unit in my kitchen. I've worked in restaurants, many restaurants with an air conditioning unit. And this health inspector told us we had to remove the air conditioner unit because it was putting non-clean air into our kitchen space and it was going to infect the food. So, in addition to the fact that an AC unit is pretty ubiquitous in our society, despite the fact that it has filters in it for that exact scenario, when you have a stove, people don't realize this in commercial environments. You have a big stove, it creates a lot of smoke. The smoke has to get pulled out with hoods, and it sucks that out. When you walk past a burger restaurant and you smell burgers, that's what's happening. Yeah. That's why. Well, if you suck all the air out of a room, you have to replace it with air. So where do you think that air comes from, Mr. Inspector? It comes from outside.
You don't have like an air machine that produces air?
No, and you're never going to believe this, but I'm going to have to call. So you're telling me I can't have return air. You're saying that that's dangerous. Well, what happens when I call a fire department and tell them I no longer am going to have any of my ventilation for hooding because I can't have return air? So I literally had to get the health inspector on the phone with fire so fire could explain to them why it's safe enough and they should let me keep my air conditioning unit.
Wow. Did he have to finally go, all right, fine then?
He said he was going to get back to me.
Yeah.
So he never admitted he was wrong. He just said he'd get back to me and never, ever followed up on that.
All right.
This is the same guy, by the way, who said that our kitchen was too dark, made us install a whole bunch of fluorescent lighting so that we would be able to see if our restaurant wasn't clean enough. And then I kid you not, 6 months later, I saw the guy and he comes in and he put on his sunglasses, quote, "It's really bright in here."
Okay, so here's the thing before you tell any more stories here, and that is we need government inspection of the whole food program, but the downside of it is it runs like a government operation.
It can be a bit, middling in your affairs can absolutely be a thing, right? Because you also then get, they love thermometers, and I get it. That's a good way to test food safety. A thermometer is an important tool, but they love thermometers. But then they won't extrapolate out from the reading of the thermometer. For example, this happened to me 2 weeks ago. Health inspector shows up, takes a thermometer. We have a sauce. It's sitting in the fridge, and he puts his thermometer in the sauce. And he goes, "This is outside the safety zone." "Yeah, it's a little warm. It's cooling down." He goes, "Yeah, but it's outside the safety zone. It's in storage. You need to throw this away." Well, we only made it about 20 minutes ago. So we cooked the sauce and then we had to put it in the fridge. He made us throw away 4 quarts of cheese sauce because it was outside the safety zone. Right. And can you imagine? He's saying this to the cook who just made it. He just spent like an hour making sauce and he's now throwing it away because it's outside the safety zone. But they love to throw things away. They love throwing little things away. There's something called the NSF sticker, and it basically certifies if something's ready for a commercial environment. But there's lots of things that don't have NSF stickers on them, just naturally.
I thought, wait a minute. I thought that was the thing that said, don't open this website at work.
Yeah, well, you might have some special filters put on your computers at work. You'll have to talk to
I thought that's what the NSF thing was, not safe for,
Oh, yeah, not safe for work. Yeah, well, you have to have the W in there. Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but so the NSF sticker, like, there will be stuff that doesn't have one, and they'll make you throw it away. Like, they'll just say, "Oh, they made us throw away a spatula because it didn't have an NSF sticker." It's like, it's a spatula. It's rubber and plastic. It looks like all the other spatulas. It's a commercial spatula, they're like, it doesn't have a sticker. I'll tell you a secret. None of them have stickers. They're
None of
spatulas.
them, no spatulas?
No, you can't put stickers on a spatula. They wash off in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Right? Stickers are terrible for this. They also hate wood. I've complained about this on the phone or on the show before. Wooden cutting boards are my favorite type of cutting boards. Everyone should be using wood cutting boards. But if you have a wood spoon in a kitchen, they will take it away from you and throw it away because it's unclean, which I don't exactly get because they didn't throw away my wood plates. Now, I didn't point out this to them because I didn't want him to throw away my wooden plates, but I'm not exactly sure how I can have not a wood spoon, which making risotto with a wood spoon is the secret to making it creamy. We can talk about that another time. But if you come to my restaurant and you think, is the risotto as good as it used to be? No, it isn't. And the health department stole that from you. So just keep that in mind. But one of the ones that's really, well, really quickly, they've also made me throw away pickles because they had been open the day before. And they said, well, these are from yesterday. Well, I mean, yeah, we opened it yesterday, but, food doesn't go bad in a day. And she's like, yeah, but pickles, and she smelled it. She goes, these smell sour.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what pickles do.
Uh-huh.
And just in general, I know I was saying at the top of the show about like the tapache and the fermentation, but like curing meats, they hate that because they don't know how to analyze it. Dry aging meats, things that are perfectly safe that people have done for hundreds of years, they always hate that. Sous vide is another one. Our health inspector, we had this one who was like, you're not allowed to sous vide unless you develop a HACCP plan. A HACCP plan.
Okay, wait a second. What's sous vide?
A sous vide is where you might have seen this on cooking shows if you've never done it. You take food, you put it in a bag, and then you cook it in like hot water. So you have a little machine that keeps the water hot, kind of circulates it, and it cooks it in the bag. This is super important. It was developed, one of the reasons it was developed was actually for fish, because as everybody knows, cooking fish is very difficult. It goes from not cooked enough to overcooked so quickly. That band is really thin. Okay. So if you can put it in a vacuum sealed bag, it'll stay moist. You can season it and you set it to an exact temperature and it's going to be 145 degrees. It'll be exactly 145 degrees when it's done. Well, the health department told us not only one, you're never allowed to do this with fish again. Number two, you have to develop a HACCP plan. A HACCP plan is what like meat manufacturers do. Like Scott, when he was talking about his 500,000 turkeys a week, he has a HACCP plan and he should. He does 500,000 turkeys a week. That's insane.
Yeah.
So they took all that away. But here's one that really bothers me, and it just happened, which is why I'm so mad. I have like a soda gun. You've seen this in restaurants where they like pull it out and they squirt Coke. So I have one of those. I have it hooked up to a brass RPZ. RPZ is like this device. It's backflow. Basically, it stops if there's syrups or whatever, it can't flow back into the water line and contaminate it. I don't have a problem with having one. You should have one. Carbonated beverages are under pressure. You should have a brass one. I had a brass one in my McKinney restaurant. I have a brass one in my Dallas restaurant. I have a second brass one in my Dallas restaurant. I used to have a brass one at my Plano restaurant. And they said, you can't have this. It has to be stainless steel. And I said, why is that? And they said, oh, well, brass is dangerous. Well, I have brass at my place in Dallas. I don't understand. The people in Dallas are idiots. They don't know anything. So they made me take it out.
Okay.
They made me take it out and replace it with stainless steel. And I don't get it. And then the last thing, we have these little rinsers you see in a bar where they like want to rinse a glass really quick. You see it for beer, right? They like rinse the glass and then pour you a beer. Well, they're manufactured to be like even to the bar. They made us go back in, raise them 1 inch. So that way, none of the water that might have pooled if it was clogged could get back into the sprayer and into the water line. And I said, so just to be clear, when I push it down and it's actually spraying water out, if that place was also completely clogged, somehow it would be so clogged that the standing clogged filthy water would be powerful enough to crawl back up the pressurized sprayer and infect the entire city's water supply. And they said, quote, it could happen.
Before we get into dangerous delicacies, are we brave enough to try raw milk and oysters and the things we're going to talk about? Tanner, I have a follow-up question to you talking about restaurant inspectors, and the health inspector comes around. I see these television shows, Restaurant Rescue, and now Gordon Ramsay has one where they're undercover with cameras, etc. And some of these places are crawling with pests, and there's grease everywhere. And do those really exist, or are they putting some of that on for the show, do you think?
I think they really exist. I think there are really restaurants that are that bad, because part of the thing is restaurants are really difficult to clean. It is a daily struggle. I can't tell you the number of times I have been finishing up a shift on the kitchen, in the bar, and I go to clean and I think, who the hell worked here today? This place is a disaster.
Yeah.
Think about your own house in the kitchen. Like, I think everybody listening to the show can empathize with that, of being like, you make a meal for yourself. You cook at home. You make a meal for yourself and you think, great, I got to cook these pans. I got to clean this. I got to do this. You can spend 30 minutes just cleaning your kitchen easily.
Right. Yeah.
And you think about a commercial kitchen, all the food, all the mess that they make. And then you think about the fact when you watch those shows, one of the components of all of it is it's always restaurants that are dying.
Yes. And so they've given up.
They're generally dying and they don't want to be there, right? It's one thing to say, I'm struggling and it's my dream to make this work and I'm doing everything I can and I'm not capable. It's another thing of, it's always classic. Like, they love to show the owner like drinking at the bar instead of attempting to run his restaurant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's part of the problem. Is, if it's like anything, if I didn't necessarily want to be doing this to begin with, now it's driving me deep into depression and also into debt,
Yeah.
then the last thing I'm going to do is go clean it. Yeah, I mean, no one likes doing it. So it's amazing how quickly restaurants can get gross. I'll tell you, I have toured so many closed down restaurants. And the way I know that this stuff is true is restaurants close basically because either business is great and they're moving for some reason, the people are ready to retire, or they've gone out of business. And when I tour ones that go out of business, you can tell they stopped cleaning it long ago. I have to hire a professional kitchen cleaning team to clean these restaurants before I take them over. And then my team comes in and does it up to my standard.
I walked into your first restaurant a couple of days before you opened it, and you had professional cleaners there, and there were these ladies there, and they were making this big pail full of soapy water, and it was hot water, you could tell, and they took it and they opened the oven and they threw it into the oven and blackness came out. It was just really scary. I'm glad you cleaned it up. Let's talk about some of the dangerous delicacies to finish off our episode of Food That Kills. How do you feel about raw milk?
I'm a huge raw milk advocate, and I think it should have less legislation around it, or at least it should have legislation around it, but it should be allowed. I have had the rawest milk, right? I've had it travel about 8 inches from udder to mouth, and that was great. Now, it is a little surprise. The first time you have warm udder milk, it does throw you off if you've only ever had fridge cold milk.
I have to butt in here and say, but that 8 inches is important. I'm glad you worked.
Yeah, I'm not going teeth to tit there. But,
Okay.
Raw milk is really, really good. And one thing that's surprising is in the United States, people drink a lot of milk. So lots of times the best milk gets used for drinking milk and low quality milks get used for cheese. Whereas like in France, where I worked for some time, and the best milk gets used for cheese and people don't really drink milk. So low milk gets turned into like shelf stable coffee milk.
Okay.
And so you get these raw milks that are then turned into cheeses. They just have a much richer flavor profile. They taste amazing. Obviously, there are food contamination risks, and that's kind of what we've been talking about on the show. But properly handled raw milk has just a richer, more beautiful flavor. And I wish that things that people are doing in France, and clearly it's not like everybody knows if you eat cheese in France, you die. So why aren't we allowed to have the cheese the French have?
Right. All right, let's talk about oysters. Some people are just so into oysters. Friends of ours, a good friend of mine who you kind of called him your uncle, my friend and comedian Dobie Maxwell, he went many, many years. He just thought, this is ridiculous. And one day somebody talked him into it, and he literally phoned me and said, this is the greatest thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah, oysters are delicious. The saltiness, the brininess of them. Of course, you can get sick eating something that's raw. You can get sick pretty much anywhere. You can get sick from coming into contact with nieces and nephews,
Yes.
but still people do that. So I think you should eat oysters. I don't think it's a really big issue, but in general, smell them. Fish, in general, a good rule of fish is if it smells like the ocean, eat it. If it smells like fish, don't eat that. Same rule
Okay.
goes for sushi. One thing that really this is sort of separate, but it's just a personal pet peeve. People will eat sushi. They will eat sushi, they'll love it, they'll think it's great. Then they will come to Flamant, our more casual bistro place. We'll order the salmon, and I tell people, "Oh, we cook it medium." And they say, "Okay." And then we bring it to them and they cut it open and they go, "It's raw in here." All right, well, first of all, that's what medium means. Second
Yeah.
of all, we bring in sushi grade salmon. It would literally be safe to eat it raw. We
Okay.
then give it a sushi cure, which is what a lot of sushi restaurants do. It helps. It's just like a secondary step to make sure it's safe. It also firms up the fish a little bit. And then we throw it on the grill. Our grill is 700 degrees. If between being safe to eat raw, cured anyway, and cooked at 700 degrees, the center is dangerous, what drives me wild is that I will try to explain to people that it's the same as sushi, and they'll be like, "Yeah, but it's raw." Like that's what sushi is. I don't know how to
Okay.
explain this to you.
Okay, well, there are many places, and especially in Toronto, where I am. You're in Texas, but I'm in Toronto. There are many restaurants. You can't get them, and I think they're not allowed to serve you a hamburger unless it's well cooked. Although I was in a restaurant, it's a high-end restaurant, and I was going to have their burger, and they said, "How do you want it?" And I said, "Medium rare," and they said, "Okay." And I said, "How do you get away with that?" And they said, "Because we're going to grind the meat and then we're going to cook it. It's not sitting there as hamburger."
Oh, okay. That's interesting. We only have one
Yeah.
restaurant that does a burger. We do grind the meat fresh. And then
Yeah.
we don't have those same rules in Texas. We're allowed to serve it pink in the middle. I have noticed, I've joked with this with the staff, and I've said, if I were to put meat in the grinder and grind fresh, very fresh, high quality Texas Wagyu beef, and then serve that to you on a plate, categoric rejection. That's weird. That's gross. How could you serve this to me? But if I take that exact fresh Texas Wagyu beef and I cut it up really, really little and mix it with like a little bit of mustard and some size, and then I tell you it's steak tartare, all of a sudden it's fine. Everybody will eat it. So there's somewhere we're all living in a world where too much grinding gross, but hand cutting it safe.
Uh-huh. Perception is reality is one of the things you're dealing with. How do you feel about gas station sushi?
I think we could avoid that. I think that we could cut gas station sushi out of our lives. I mean, there's foods. Okay, I'm an advocate for eating raw food. I just said drink raw milk. I love sushi. I love steak tartare. I think it's great. To be fair, I also don't eat raw ground beef. I don't know. I know it's my own thing in my own head, but it's still weird. But gas
Okay.
station sushi, this is just a thing you can look past. Now, grocery store sushi, I'll eat. Where they have it someplace like
Right.
Sprouts, Whole Foods does it. Kroger will do it now. And that I'm like, okay, this is still a food environment. There's still somebody doing it. But, I don't feel that I should get taquitos and burnt roller dogs from the same person I buy raw food from. That's just, it's not the same. It's not the same, and I don't want it. But
How
raw
about, okay.
cookie dough, this is, people who don't eat cookie dough, I get it. If you're like, no, I'm immunocompromised, like I really can't. But if you're just like, if it's just your head, I've had cookie dough that was significantly better than the cookies, and not just one time, like a lot of times. I love eating raw cookie dough. I love licking,
But
the
I've heard people
beaters.
say you shouldn't.
Well, of course you hear people say you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But you also hear people say you shouldn't go into the restaurant business. You've also heard people tell you, for you to say I won't eat raw cookie dough, and then for you to also say, "Oh, I've gone skydiving and I rode a bull in a rodeo," I would
It's not the
say
same thing.
it's exactly the same thing. It is more dangerous to ride a bull in a rodeo than eat a piece of cookie dough.
All right. One last thing. Fugu.
Fugu, I have never had. It's on my food bucket list. So fugu is pufferfish, famously a toxic fish. So only people with a license can serve it. I don't know of anywhere that's serving it here in the US. I know it's a Japanese delicacy because you can eat pufferfish, but you have to be so good at knowing which part is toxic, which part isn't, handling the fish so that the toxic part doesn't leach into the safe part. So my understanding is you go to a very expensive sushi place, they prepare you the fish, and the chef eats the first bite to prove that it's safe. And then you can enjoy the delicacy. Is it any good? I don't know, because no one ever talks about that. They only talk about the toxic part. But what a good way to wrap up a show about food that'll kill you. Thank you so much for listening to our show, Flavor Files. You can find us on Flavor Files, PHILES.com. We're also on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Have a great week.